Oh, it's hot in here, Jesus Christ. Hello there everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Elliot Webber, and now a few things are currently happening in the world of motorsport. Of course, this weekend I will be at Brands Hatch for Super Touring Car Power 2. If you're going there, let me know, I'm sure we can meet up or whatever. Of course, is currently the European triple header for Formula One. They are at Austria this weekend, and then of course the week after that is the British Grand Prix. And also, it is currently now the summer break for the Btcc. They are now, as I just mentioned, in their summer break. And so I thought, why don't I go down the entire list of drivers and I grade them based on their first 15 races of the 2024 season. So, as always, let's get straight into this. So, starting off, you're probably wondering, how am I going to grade all of these drivers? Well, I've done it based on their current performances, where they are in the championships, their results. So that's basically one and the same, and also my expectations of them at the start of the year. So let's say one driver, I expected them to do like really well, be on the podium multiple times, and then they end up only getting a couple of top 10 finishes. Then they will get a lower grade because I personally expected more of them. So this is just my personal grading. You do not have to agree with me. You are fine to disagree with me. And in fact, I prefer it if you do, because I love having discussions about certain drivers and, of course, the season. So if you do disagree with me, I take no shame in that. That's fine. We live in a free world. You can have a different opinion. So yeah, I'm going to start off in descending order. So I'm going to start also in championship order. So I am going to start with the championship leader, Jake Hill. And starting off, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to give him an A+ for his first 15 races. Now, of course, he has had a bit of bad luck, that mysterious DNF in Brands Hatch, where the entire steering arms, or I'm not exactly sure what it was, but if you've seen that race in race 2 at Brands Hatch, the steering wheel was completely broken. So a very mysterious DNF, and of course he struggled to make up ground in race 3. But ever since Brands Hatch, Jake Hill has been probably the best driver on the grid. He's taken 5 wins, 2 double wins, which a lot of people aren't happy about. But yeah, 5 wins in 15 races is a phenomenal record to have in the first half of the season. He's been always in the top 10 as well. His qualifying's been phenomenal. He's probably been the best qualifier of the season so far. Maybe Tom Ingram as well. It's between Hill and Ingram for who is the best qualifier this year. But Jake Hill, and in my opinion, he's been the best driver for the at least the past 9 races. I'd say he's been the best driver. So no doubt, Jake Hill is earning himself an A+ grade to begin with. Now let's move on to Tom Ingram. Now, Tom Ingram, again, has had another great start, great first half of the year for him. Of course, former champion, of course, trying to get that #1 back on his rear window. There's no doubt that everyone expected Tom Ingram to be up there once again, and he had a phenomenal start at Donington Park, taking a double win. But then since then, he hasn't obviously been winning races. Of course, he did win race 1 at Oulton Park. Technically won a race at Thruxton, but that was taken away due to him cutting the chicane, which I'm going to be honest, I think that was fair. He did cut the corner. He didn't give the place back. So, yeah, I believe that was a fair penalty for Tom Ingram. That's all I'm going to say about it. So, yeah, but Tom Ingram, once again, he's always up there. He is ridiculously consistent this year, once again. If you take out Snetterton race 2 where he didn't score a point, and then you take out Brands Hatch race 3 where he had that unfortunate puncture, he has had every single race in the top 10, or he's finished every single race in the top 10. However, due to the fact that again, I sort of this one again, it's really difficult because he is exactly where I expected him, but he's not had the perfect season. He's had some misfortunes, and he hasn't made any mistakes. But yeah, I'm honestly, I'm going to give Tom Ingram just a solid A. It's been another great season for him, but again, yeah, due to the fact he's second in the championship and not leading, I can't really give him an A+. But honestly, it's torn between an A+ and a regular A rating, but certainly I am going to give Tom Ingram just a regular A for now. So yeah, now let's move on, of course, to Ash Sutton. Now, this one, I'm either going to make a lot of people happy by my grading, or I'm going to upset a lot of Ash Sutton fans. Ash Sutton, of course, after the dominance of 2023, I'm sure we all expected him once again to be up there fighting for wins. And honestly, Ash Sutton hasn't been doing that. He hasn't done a lot of winning. He has only won one race at the time of recording. Something where you compare that to last year, and I think this time last year, Ash Sutton, I think, had about 7 wins already or something like that. So yeah, a bit of a huge difference in 2024 compared to 2023, but I do think that is because I believe the Hyundai and the BMW have caught up in performance compared to the Ford, and not only that, the hybrid is making a difference. We've seen that a lot. Ash Sutton, there have been a ton of qualifying sessions where he probably should have been on pole, but due to the fact he's had very little hybrid in those qualifying sessions, he hasn't actually been able to get pole position. So I definitely think had Sutton not had that hybrid loss, that he definitely would have been, he would have been on pole a lot more, and no doubt probably would have won a lot more races. But even so, once again, it's been fairly consistent. Ash Sutton had, I believe, 7 podiums in a row at the start of 2024. So again, that, come on, it's Ash Sutton. We know how good he is by now. But unfortunately, he's had a little bit of misfortune. Alton Park, this is recording on the Tuesday after Alton Park, so everything is still fresh in my mind, thankfully. And yeah, Ash Sutton had huge misfortune because for 2 races in a row he had to come in due to this new black and orange flag rule. For those of you who don't know, the black and orange flag basically, or the meatball flag as a lot of people call it, it basically means there is something flapping or dangling off of your car. It's dangerous. You need to come into the pits and you need to remove it. And this is basically a race ruiner. It basically means you're out of the race. You're not going to compete for anything. And that's basically what it was for Ash Sutton. He had that in race 2 with the rear wheel arch coming off. And then in race 3, it was, I believe, the front wheel arch was actually rubbing on the tyre. And I do actually think that gave Sutton a sort of a slow puncher. So yeah, not the misfortune, not the fortune, should I say, Ash Sutton was expecting to have in 2024. But yeah, and unfortunately, it does seem like that he's just not been there even when he has had a bit of a hybrid advantage, because of course Jake Hill, Tom Ingram, they've both won more races than Ash this year. And so in those 2nd and 3rd races where he ultimately should have passed them, he should have had, because of course he had more hybrid when he was starting behind them. So theoretically, Ash maybe should have been getting his elbows out a bit more, like we saw in race 1, funny enough, at Alton Park. And unfortunately, with the misfortune and with my expectations of him, I'm unfortunately going to give Ash Sutton an A-. Actually, I might change it to an A, actually, because he still had a solid season. But yeah, he's just not had the better seasons than Jake Hill or Tom Ingram. So yeah, I was originally going to give it an A-, but no, I'm actually going to give him a solid A, similar to Tom Ingram, because I've actually had kind of similar seasons this year. So yeah, a solid A for Ash Sutton. Now swiftly moving on to his teammate Dan Cammish. Now Dan Cammish honestly has gone a little bit under the radar in recent races. Dan Cammish surprisingly has had a solid season. He's been phenomenal, winless, but he's been great. He seems like he's much closer to Ash Sutton than he has been in 2022 and 2023. It also seems like Dan Cammish doesn't have that horrible luck that he's been having these past couple of years, especially in 2022 and 2023. So it does seem like, whilst of course he's not been winning races as I'm sure many people would like, I personally want to see Dan Cammish do well, a former Team Dynamics driver, so I sort of still have to support him a little bit, only a little bit, because he's driving a Ford now. But Dan Cammish, I'll be honest, Dan Cammish has surprised me, which is why I'm going to give him this high grading, because as I mentioned, I'm basing this off of my expectations as well. And I did not expect Dan Cammish to be actually so close to Ash Sutton this year. Not only that, so close to Jake Hill and Tom Ingram, because, you know, at time of recording, Dan Cammish is 4th in the championship. He's very close to Ash Sutton in the standings as well. And who knows, once Dan Cammish starts winning some races, Dan Cammish could potentially be a dark horse for the championship. I know everyone's been sort of hyping up that it's only Jake Hill, Tom Ingram and Ash Sutton, but you got to look out there. Colin Turkington's still up there. Josh Cook is now a race winner again. And once Dan Cammish starts winning some races, we could potentially have a 6-way championship fight. So yeah, so due to the season Cam has just been having, his recent consistency and his closeness to Ash Sutton compared to previous years, I'm going to give Dan Camish an A+ on the first half of the 2024 season. So congratulations to that, Dan. And now let's move on to Josh Cook. Now, Josh Cook, surprisingly, was a bit of a tricky one. I didn't really know how to grade him. Now, of course, moving into a completely brand new team for him, moving into a completely brand new car as well, the Toyota Corolla, I didn't have many expectations. However, I did expect Josh Cook to be the best Toyota driver this year. Yes, better than Rob Huff, better than Andrew Watson, because I do think a lot of people have expected a bit too much on Rob Huff, but I'll come back to that in a minute when I get to him. And Josh Cook, yeah, he's been brilliant. I'll be honest, Josh Cook has been brilliant. He has been the best Toyota driver by quite a margin, I will say. Yes, Rob Huff and Aidan Moffat won races first, but Josh Cook has been phenomenally consistent. And ever since he got that podium, I believe it was at Brands Hatch, he got his first podium, he's been phenomenal. He said he was still figuring some stuff out after Donington and Brands. But yeah, even so, he has had a brilliant season. And now that he's got that race win, it seems like that's gifted him a big boost in confidence that maybe Josh Cook, as I mentioned with Dan Camish, could be an outsider for the championship. So yeah, solidly enough, I'm going to give Josh Cook a solid A for his first half of the season. Now, let's move on to Colin Turkington. So moving on to Colin Turkington. Now, once again, this one was a very, very tricky one to judge, a very tricky one to grade, because Colin Turkington, Donington Park, decent weekend, a solid opening weekend. Brands Hatch, he was probably the best driver at Brands Hatch, pole position, 2 race wins, and at the time the championship lead. So yeah, again, Colin Turkington in those first 2 rounds was phenomenal. The rounds after, Snetterton, Thruxton, Alton Park, he's honestly been nowhere. Colin Turkington, 3 top 10s at Snet, perfect. But when your teammate's doing a double and was the fastest driver by far, almost could have had 3 out of 3 for Jake Hill, might I add, at Snet. Yeah, Colin, he's been nowhere. He hasn't touched the podium. He hasn't even been on the brink of a pole position. He actually missed out on the quick 6 at Alton Park. So I don't know what's going on. He's got a new engine. He's got pretty much, obviously it's not a completely brand new car, but with that new engine, Colin Turkington even said that this feels like the 2019 car. And let's not forget the brilliant 2019 season Turkington had. I think with that, a lot of people, myself included, did expect Turkington to be up there with Hill, Ingram and Sutton, but he's not. In fact, he's now falling behind Camish and Josh Cook. And even now, he's got Aaron Taylor-Smith closing in on him in the standings. And that's in a Power Max independent Vauxhall, compared to, of course, the factory BMW. So it's very unfortunate to say this, but I'm going to give Turkington a B. It's not been the best of 2024 seasons, but it seems like we do this every year. It seems like Turkington has really good rounds, then he drops off a little bit, and then he comes back in the second half of the season. So hopefully that's another year for Turkington. But these regular top 10 finishes aren't going to be enough to win that 5th title when your title rivals, especially one of them is your teammate, is winning races at almost every single round and is not running away with the championship. But it's important to try, and you know, if Turkington can't compete for championships anymore, then who knows? As I mentioned in my predictions video, I don't see Turkington on the grid for much longer, but I hope I'm wrong, and I do hope that Turkington does get it together. But yeah, as I mentioned, it is only a B rating or a B grading for Colin Turkington. Moving on to Aaron Taylor-Smith, a little bit further down in Ireland now. Aaron Taylor-Smith, honestly, he has been fantastic this year. My expectations were pretty low, to be honest, for Power Max Racing. I thought, oh, they're using the Astra again. How much more can they do with that Astra, despite the brilliant 2023 season they had? And whilst so far it's not been, I would say, as good, they've had multiple podiums in 2023, and they've only had 2 podiums at time of recording. Aaron Taylor-Smith has surprisingly been phenomenal. I actually don't think he's had a non-point score this year. So I think he's had every single race in the points. And that in a season where points are seemingly much more valuable due to the fact that there are less cars, this year, points are a little bit more valuable, I would say, with less cars. But even so, Aaron Taylor-Smith has been phenomenal. By being P7, he is sort of in a best of the rest category. And not only that, he's dominating the Independence Championship this year. He's likely going to wrap up the Independence title this year. I would say maybe even before Brands Hatch. Who knows? But Aaron Taylor-Smith has been phenomenal. That brilliant defensive drive at Alton Park in race 3 is what helped his teammate Mikey Doble achieve his maiden podium. What was so close to a race win as well. Wow, what a battle that was in race 3. But yeah, so with the season Taylor-Smith is having, and compared to the fact that I wasn't expecting him to be as good as he has been, I'm going to give Aaron Taylor-Smith an A-star. He's an A-star or an A+. It's been a phenomenal first half of the year for Aaron Taylor-Smith. Now, let's move on to, I believe it's Dan Rowbottom, I believe, next, or it might be Adam Morgan. I'll find out in a sec. So moving on to Adam Morgan, the second of the three factory BMWs. Now it's been a tough one for Adam again. I'm not too sure. I expected him to have a similar season to last year, where he would be on the podium a bit more. He would be on the podium, potentially have a race win, but that hasn't happened. Adam Morgan hasn't stepped on the podium yet in 2024, and that's something that is, I'll be honest, a little bit disappointing, because I actually like Adam Morgan. I really like him. I wouldn't say he's one of my favourites, but he's not someone I dislike. He's one of those drivers where he's seemingly stuck in a bit of a middle position as a police car goes by. Anyway, ignoring that. Yeah, he's sort of been, he's a bit of a middleman. He is nowhere near the best driver on the grid, but Adam Morgan is also nowhere near the worst driver on the grid. So he's sort of stuck in the middle, so he can't really fight for those wins. But yeah, but honestly, I did expect Adam Morgan to at least be on the podium once this year, especially because I do think he has had a reverse grid pole position, and he went backwards from my memory in whatever race that was. I do think it was Thruxton. I do believe it was Thruxton, which is also one of Adam's best tracks statistically. He's had many race wins there. So yeah, and so for the fact that he has been performing well, he's had regular top 10s, but due to the fact he's not had any podiums whatsoever and hasn't seemingly looked like to be in contention for one, I'm only going to give it a solid B. But still, a top 10 in the championship is still pretty good. I just do hope he does improve later on in the year, especially because, again, it's WSR. It's one of the best teams in touring car history. I did expect a little better. So Aidan Moffat, and another one that's been very difficult to grade, because Aidan Moffat seemingly has had phenomenal pace all year. It's just the fact that there's something seemingly always going wrong on that Toyota Corolla that stops Aidan from being the driver that some of us know he is, and of course some of us know that he could be. Aidan, whilst probably isn't a championship caliber driver, he is still a proven race winner, as shown this year, in fact, when he had that phenomenal race win at Donington Park, defending from Turkington and from Ash Sutton, which isn't easy to do. They are both two of the greatest touring car drivers of all time. Let's not mention he was fighting with Rob Huff in that, so he had 8 BTCC titles and a world championship behind him, and he still won. It was phenomenal. That was a brilliant drive, and I honestly hope that would give Aidan a little bit of a confidence boost. The past couple of years, especially last year at One Motorsport, of course, he struggled, but everyone did in that Honda. So yeah, it does seem like it has been more of reliability costing Aidan Moffat the ability to perform, rather than mistakes that he's made. Because to be honest, I don't think he's made any mistakes this year, or unless he has, I've not noticed or forgotten. But yeah, so it's another difficult one. But I honestly, the fact that he is in front of Rob Huff and Andrew Watson in the standings, and I'll be honest, I did expect both of them to sort of outperform Aidan a little bit this year. Aidan has had a great season. He's had a great season, which is why I am going to give him a solid B. A solid B. Nothing more to say about that. Aidan, again, I just really hope that whatever reliability issues he's seemingly having every round completely disappears once we get to Croft. So moving on to Tom Chilton now, and Tom Chilton again. difficult one because Chilton has improved this year. There is no denying that. Tom Chilton has improved this year compared to a couple of previous seasons where he's not been where he should be. But it seems like he's not, whilst not back at the front, he is now more consistently in the top 10. And not only that, he has actually been pretty decent. Brands Hatch, that podium, phenomenal. 1-2 behind his teammate Ronan Pearson. That was phenomenal. His qualifying has improved as well. I believe he's had 3 appearances in the quick 6 now this year, so 3 out of 5. It's been at least 2. I know that it's been at least 2 because I know at Alton Park he was in the quick 6. So yeah, Chilton has stepped up his game, and we are seeing more of the old Tom Chilton from about 10 years ago when he was in the Focus. Although personally, I like to see him back in a Honda at some point. But yeah, Chilton, as I mentioned, it does seem like he's improved. It does seem like we are getting more of that old Tom Chilton, the older elbows out kind of Tom Chilton, because he has gotten his elbows out. Rewatch race 3 if you haven't already, where he definitely gets his elbows out in the last lap. So yeah, it's great to see Tom Chilton coming back. However, once again, I honestly, I probably expected too much of him personally, but I definitely expected more than 1 podium in 2024 so far. No doubt, we're probably going to see Tom back on the podium, and I really hope we do, because Tom is one of my favourite drivers. So yeah, I definitely hope to see Tom Chilton back on the podium. But as for my grading, and due to the fact that Alton Park wasn't his best weekend, though he did have reliability issues, unfortunately, I'm going to give it a B- because I did expect a little bit more from Tom, but no doubt it has been an improvement. So might give it a B potentially, but a B- stands for now, though it's alternating between B- and a B. So yeah, moving on to Rob Half. Now, of course, this one probably the most difficult to judge, because my expectations, I didn't have any expectations of him, because we can't really judge him off of previous years, because the last time he had a full season was 20 years ago when I was still in the womb. Although, obviously, 20 years ago to this day, I was a very tiny baby. So, yeah, very, very difficult. I can't judge him off of his one-off appearance last year, and I can't judge him off of his TCR appearances, because completely different spec of car, on completely different tracks, racing against completely different drivers. So, again, a difficult one. But I do think a lot of people sort of over anticipated, had too much expectations. You know, whenever I put up a post saying, oh, give me your pole position predictions, give me your predictions for the season, and a lot of people said, yeah, Rob Huff is going to be up there. And that's no surprise. I'm not surprised you're saying Rob Huff is going to be a title contender, but in his first full season of touring in BTCC after 20 years, is he going to be straight up there? No, and he wasn't. And I'm not surprised he wasn't. But he has been great this year. That race win at Snetterton, brilliant. Only his third career win ever in BTCC. But it was a phenomenal win. Such a shame I couldn't get Rob Huff on the channel, though I did ask him, but unfortunately timing didn't work out. But yeah, so for Rob Huff, given how he's won a race, whilst I did expect that, I expected that, so it's a solid A for Rob Huff. And no doubt, as the season goes on, and if he comes back for 2025, we are going to be seeing Rob Huff improve, hopefully, even though he's no spring chicken. But anyway, now let's move on to the next driver who has just popped out of my mind. So moving on to Dan Rowbottom, and Dan Rowbottom again, a difficult one, because I'll be honest, I expected much better from him this year. Once again, I expected him to be whilst not closer to Ash Shine, a little bit closer to his 2 other teammates, Sutton and Camish. So yeah, a difficult one. Thruxton was the one where I thought he'd do well, get on a podium, potentially win a race, but he didn't do that, and I don't think he hasn't even stepped on the podium at this point this year, and that does seem like it's getting a little bit, it's seemingly like it's becoming a pattern. You know, his first year at Team Dynamics, he was great, won a race, got a couple of pole positions, got multiple podiums, and got a top 10 in the championship. Then the second year at Team Dynamics, he wasn't good at all, in my opinion. He only had 1 podium when whilst his teammate was Gordon Shedden is much older, had a couple of years out, and was winning races and was, for the majority of the season, a dark horse for the championship. And it seemingly like that again. He had a decent year at Napa Racing, multiple podiums, won a race, pole position as well, I think. So a great, 2023 was a good year for Rowbottom, but now it's seemingly we're falling back into almost a pattern where his second year is never as good as his first year at a team. Of course, this is only the second time it's happened, but I don't think it can't really be a coincidence. So yeah, strange one, which is why, because I expect him to be better and he hasn't really been delivering. Well, he's been delivering results. He's had multiple point scores and he's been helping Camish and Sutton. So he's doing his job, but again, he needs results as well, which is why I'm going to give him a C+, maybe a B-. So yeah. So moving on to the former teammates, Mikey Doble and Andrew Watson, starting off with Mikey Doble because he's ahead in the championship. Doble is, again, a tough one. I didn't really have that many expectations for him because, as I mentioned with Aaron Taylor-Smith, I didn't expect the Astra to be competitive for a second year running. But it has been. It has been competitive. As I mentioned, Aaron Taylor-Smith has had every single race in the points. Mikey Doble hasn't had that, but there has been solid improvement, and that can be said for that race 3 at Alton Park a couple of days ago. Led every single lap, almost, apart from the last one. He was brilliant defending against his teammate for the opening laps. He was brilliant pulling a gap from his teammate when ATS was defending from Jake Hill. But then when Jake Hill got past, a lot of people, myself included, was expecting it's a matter of when Jake Hill gets past. But then the last lap happened, and I was, admittedly, I want Jake Hill to do well. As I mentioned, I want him to be up there in the championship again, and he is, obviously. But I was praying, fingers crossed, that Mikey Doble would bring it home. Unfortunately, he didn't. But that is not to take away that phenomenal entire weekend that Mikey Doble had. And there has been improvement there. And I think now that he's got that maiden podium, there is no doubt that Doble will once again be on the podium again at some point this year. Doble has had huge improvement. He's been driving like a touring car driver. Let's not forget, before 2023, not a lot of people knew who he was, given the fact that he came from club racing. So he had a ginormous step into coming out of BMW and Ginetta racing into the BTCC. It's a huge step, and he was brilliant in 2023, and he's only gotten better in 2024. So for this season, might be a little bit of recency bias, given, of course, that maiden podium at Alton Park. But even so, it's been a great season for Mikey Doble, which is why I'm going to give him a solid A grading for Mikey Doble. Now, as I mentioned, moving on to Andrew Watson. Watson has seemingly struggled to delve with the Toyota. Speaking to him at Snetterton, go check that out. It's only 90 seconds long, but still, go check it out. It's a nice, quick, short chat. Yeah, he said he was still learning the Toyota Corolla, and it does seem like he's doing that. Unfortunately, there hasn't been many results that are worth talking about. I rarely hear Watson's name now in the on the broadcast because he's not really up there. In fact, I think the only times I heard Watson's name from the commentators was because he had 2 penalties in 2 races. And I believe both were for false starts. So that's not the best weekend to have, but no doubt there has been potential there. Andrew Watson did rack up a 4th place at Brands Hatch, so I thought that would be the start of something, but it does seem like he's dipped down a little bit. And now, considering all 3 of his teammates have race wins, I do think Watson does need to step up a little bit in the second half of the year. Sounds harsh, but yeah, he surprisingly to me as well, he has been the worst Toyota driver, and I thought, considering his amazing rookie season and the fact he's now in race winning machinery, I expected a little bit better from Watson. But yeah, as I spoke to him at Snet, he's still confident he's going to get that race win, so hopefully he does. I've still got his fingers crossed. I still want him to do well, so that's why I'm only going to give Andrew Watson a C. Unfortunately, not the best of seasons so far, but again, as I mentioned, there is always room for improvement. So moving on to Ronan Pearson, and another difficult one, especially because I really like Ronan Pearson. He's probably been my favourite driver apart from Tom Ingram and apart from Tom Chilton. Obviously, again, the team dynamics effect happening as well from that. But even so, yeah, Ronan has been one of my favourite drivers to watch in these past 2 seasons, of course. But this year, he has improved. He has improved. Already improving his results. He had that brilliant 5th place in the first race of the season. Admittedly, it wasn't really much of a race in race 1 at Donington, but forget that. P5, solid start to the year. Brands Hatch, again, struggled in the first 2 races. Wasn't his fault. He was taken out in race 1. But even so, he came back through the field in race 2, got on pole for the reverse grid and took a fantastic maiden BTCC win. But that's been the only thing to talk about for Ronan Pearson, is that maiden win, which is unfortunate because Ronan's talent is much better than that. He's much better than 15th in the championship. He's much better than just a couple of point scores. He should be in that top 10. He's had some bad luck. He had some reliability issues at Thruxton, and again as well, I do think he had some type of issue at Alton Park. I'm not too sure, but he just wasn't there at Alton Park, unfortunately. A couple of point scores, every race in the points at Alton Park, but still, there was nothing there. So it's unfortunate to do this, but unfortunately, I can't judge him off of one good result. So it's only going to be a B- for Ronan Pearson, a B-. But no doubt he's been much better than in 2023. And I really hope when we get to Knock Hill especially, we'll be seeing Ronan back on the podium and hopefully on that top step again. So Chris Smiley, time to talk about him, of course, coming back into BTCC after 2 years away in TCR with the same team that he raced with in TCR. So a little bit of an upper hand because he's with the team that he knows. He's with, he is with a team that he knows well. He's known them for the past 2 years, but touring cars has changed a lot in the 2 years he's been away. Of course, hybrid, he's had to learn. He's actually had to learn the Cupra because he's never driven the Cupra before this year. So, yeah, a lot to learn. But Chris Smiley has been gradually been getting there. He's been a regular point scorer this year, but that, in my opinion, was going to be the bare minimum for him. I expected him to be in the points regularly, break into the top 10. And I actually did predict that at some point this year, Restart Racing, whether that be from Smiley or Scott Sumpton, they would get a podium. And after Alton Park, my confidence has been boosted from that. Chris Smiley was brilliant at Alton Park. He was great, and a little bit under the radar, of course, because he wasn't up there, but he got 2 top 10 finishes. Restart Racing's first top 10s in their BTCC tenure, so big congrats to Restart for them, of course. Yeah, as I mentioned, brilliant. So slow but gradual improvement from Chris Smiley this year. Again, I'm not going to judge him compared to his previous year because his previous year was 3 years ago. So yeah, but it's been brilliant. Again, might be a little bit of recency bias, but I'm going to give Chris Smiley an A rating for his current 2024 season. Now, moving on to Sam Osborne. Again, not really a difficult one. Sam, I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen much improvement from him since 2021, maybe. I haven't seen much improvement. I thought that after his maiden podium in 2023 and his actually good showing at Silverstone last year in the Valvoline livery, I thought that 2024 was going to be a much better year. I thought, not only that, I thought he's got less cars to worry about now. He is still in one of the best cars on the grid. He doesn't have to be beating Robo, Camish and Sutton, because those 3 drivers, I'll be honest, they're on another level compared to Sam. And I hate being negative about drivers, especially someone like Sam, who I've actually met a couple of years ago. Such a nice guy. But yeah, unfortunately, it seems like Sam Osborne is the personification of nice guys don't finish first. And yeah, it's unfortunate about that because Sam, there hasn't been much improvement from him. I'm not too sure if he's had any reliability issues with the Ford. I'm not too sure, but yeah, he hasn't been performing well. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to give Sam Osborne a D rating and the lowest grading so far out of all the drivers. Unfortunate, but that's just how I see it. I expected a lot more from Sam Osborne. But anyway, moving on to something a little bit more positive now. Daryl DeLeon. Now, Daryl DeLeon, I didn't have any expectations for Daryl at this point in the at the start of the season, should I say, at the start of the year. I did not expect him to be doing so well, purely because I did not even expect Daryl DeLeon to be on the grid, even though that this unlimited motorsport team birthed from the ashes of Team Hard. I wasn't expecting them to make Donington Park, I'll be totally honest, and I said that tweeting on the Friday. They didn't do Friday, they didn't do pre-season testing. I don't even think they did the first 3 practice sessions at Donington Park, so I was like, yeah, I don't know if they're going to make Donington Park, and even if they do make Donington Park, they won't finish the season. But no, I've been surprised. I've been proven wrong again. They've luckily managed to be at every single round, and not only that, being competitive in some of the crazier races we've seen. Daryl DeLeon has been phenomenal. Donington Park especially. He made it to Q2, which was a complete shock to everyone, especially me. I didn't expect Daryl DeLeon to be driving so well. And he's been driving phenomenally. He's had some brilliant qualifying performances. He's been improving race by race. He's had, I believe, 2 top 10s already. And given how that is undoubtedly the worst car on the grid, 2 top 10s to speak about is brilliant for Daryl DeLeon. So after some brilliant performances, as I mentioned, some top 10s, standout qualifying results, I'm going to give Daryl DeLeon an A grading. It's been a brilliant season so far for Daryl DeLeon, especially for a driver still so young as well. I do think he's still 18 years old. The youngest driver on the grid by far. He's been driving phenomenally, and I really hope that we get to see Daryl in a much more competitive car in the future. Scott Sumpton now, again, difficult one to judge. As we know, Scott Sumpton is technically the only rookie on the grid. Of course, DeLeon technically is as well. It's his first full season, but he's had experience last year. So for Scott Sumpton, there were no expectations from me for him. Fellow Essex boy, so I could just say an A plus, but I'm not going to do that. Honestly though, I think he's done well. Whilst of course he hasn't been in the top 10 regularly, he has been a point scorer. He scored points at Alton Park. He scored points, I believe he did score points at Thruxton. Had a brilliant showing at Snetterton, getting his best ever result with P11. He was so close to a top 10, but even so, a P11, that's great, especially for him. So yeah, there's definitely room for improvement. I think he could potentially be a little bit closer to Chris Smiley, though Chris is a multiple experience. He's very experienced compared to Scott. But Scott, as I mentioned, he's still young. He's still learning. So to be honest, given my expectations for him, he's exceeded them. But yeah, I do think there is a little bit room for improvement. So I'm going to give him a B plus, maybe an A minus. So I'm torn between the two. So yeah. Now, last but not least, Nick Halstead. Pretty simple. He gets an A++ because he subscribed to the channel. So yeah, that is it, guys, for my driver gradings of the first half of the 2024 BTCC season. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Which gradings would you give to the drivers of 2024? You may also notice I didn't grade Bobby Thompson. That is because it would be unfair to grade someone who's only done 1 round of the season. But fingers crossed he comes back at some point in 2024, and hopefully he comes back for 2025. So yeah, that is it, guys. As I mentioned, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. If you're new around here, be sure to like this video, share with your mates as well, because it of course does help my channel grow, and of course press that subscribe button because we are firmly on the road to 300 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see all of you in the next one. Goodbye.